So we're a workplace safety and analytics company. We use computer vision AI technology for workplace, safety assessment, basically. So we take camera feeds from, from cameras that are already installed at various work environments, and we analyze them for various, to measure the compliance, non-compliance, various safety things. We don't focus on, recognizing individuals if we don't do facial recognition and any of that kind of stuff. We're really focused on more like site-wide, org-wide compliance, things like if a forklift is driving around with the forks raised, that's generally something you shouldn't be doing. If you're vehicles that are not stopping in intersections that they're supposed to stop because there's pedestrians there, or if there's like no ped zone, no pedestrian zones, areas where humans shouldn't be walking because there's too many vehicles going through often, um, among many detections that we can do. But we report metrics and statistics on this from across sites. Our our big focus is really like trying to help sites understand the way that their safety is changing. It's really difficult to measure these things in like pure absolutes, right? Have to have a perfect AI computer vision system that catches every single frame and somehow processes every single one. That's a great aspiration, but the real reality is that there's no site that is perfectly safe, which means that all of them can just be getting better. And so if we're focused on tracking the change over time and helping sites improve. At the end of the day, our customers expect to see that the numbers that they get from us are like meaningful and that the changes in those numbers are meaningful. So, anytime that our reliability, especially when our reliability changes, right? To be totally honest, if we had only 3 nines, which doesn't feel very good, of availability, but it was consistently, exactly 3 nines, and the rate of change over time was pretty stable, that might be okay. Realistically, we want it to be much better than that, obviously. And right now, we actually are quite a bit better than that. But just as an example, it just means that anytime that there's even a small change, it can have a big impact on the numbers that, the statistics that we give a customer. And they need to be able to trust that when the numbers on their dashboard change, it's because something actually changed at their site, right? Like that the site either got safer or, less safe, not that like the measurement system changed. And so suddenly you know, uh, that they're seeing something different that's not actually true.
How do you see Firetiger helping you on this reliability journey?
Um, a big part, I mean, I guess the main thing really is that like we have a lot of engineers that are focused on computer vision, perception, sort of like the algorithm side of the work or the application side of the work. Um, and not as many engineers that have a ton of experience with just SRE, infrastructure building, reliability, stability, that kind of stuff. And we could hire a lot more engineers in that direction, but realistically, I mean, that's not what we want to do. We want to hire more people that are, making the real sausage, not making sausage machines, right? And so the idea is that Firetiger will help us bring some of the engineers that are maybe not as experienced in operations and reliability and that kind of work, to let them at least get from something appears to be wrong to here's a potential cause, and hopefully in some in at least some of the cases get and make them able to resolve them, because very often like something goes wrong, there's a bug in production, that bug causes some metric disturbance, some log that you can analyze to find what the bug is. Doing the work to figure out where the bug was originates is often very different from like the work to like actually just fix it, right? Because sometimes it might be someone made an algorithm change, it's suddenly more expensive and now it's breaking a downstream system, and all you get is operationally is the downstream system broke signal, not the like this one thing is behaving slightly differently signal. And so that's what I'm hoping to get from Firetiger. We're just starting to onboard really a lot more team members onto it, so we'll see if that hope materializes. But I feel pretty good about where we're what we've gotten out of it so far.
Uh, can you talk a little bit about your role at the company?
Yeah, I've been with Voxel for about four-ish years. I'm a principal engineer here. I didn't come with AI computer vision background. I've only really learned what I've learned here. I came with a lot of infrastructure background, and so my role really has been to build infrastructure. When I first joined, I was like the platform team for the company. I helped grow the platform team into a real team, and then actually helped hire the director now that runs the team. But it's still not that big of a team, realistically. And I think our goal is, even then, we really want platform engineers to be able to focus on building the platform tools that other teams need, not just only building infrastructure, right? So yeah, my role has been really like to help figure out how to keep the thing growing and scaling successfully.
I saw you guys had a couple of outages that you used agents to help figure out.
Yeah, well, especially early on when we were trialing, we had a couple outages that we used to investigate. I think the we were sort of just trying to understand what information and how deep the information was that we could get from Firetiger. And the by far the most important thing we figured out then was that it's still just like any other agent LLM tool, vastly context dependent. It will give good answers with good context and just okay answers with not so good context. So early answers could have been better, but only because it didn't really have the system knowledge built. So I think once we understood that about the product and were able to figure out how to help the product build the right level of system knowledge, it really went from just okay answers to really excellent deep dives into the tech stack. Like mostly did that by I really just sort of explicitly guided it through some of the repo and some of the different metrics and the tools. Um, just like I was onboarding, just like onboarding an engineer, honestly. It's pretty much the same thing. So um, so yeah, once we did that, yeah, we've been able to use it a few times. It does we get pretty good results when doing kind of root cause analysis, trying to figure out if something is broken. Still like requires humans to really understand the information correctly. But the biggest one that I think is the biggest aid that we've had now more recently is that there have been a couple of times, not a couple of, probably several times a week at least right now, some alarm will fire off that's maybe a little noisier than it should be. Something that looks like an error, looks like an production bug, application bug, something like that. That will grab an engineer's attention. They'd have to spend a while looking at logs and trying to look at metrics and dashboards and figure out like, okay, is there really something going on and what is it? And we've been able to fire off just sort of a one-shot query into Firetiger, like, hey, this alarm's going off. There's some metric abnormality. There's a PagerDuty page, whatever. Firetiger pulls logs and gives an assessment. And I would say like right now, and it probably says something about how noisy our alarms are. They're a little too noisy right now, but probably 4 times out of 5, it's some assessment that says, oh, that's actually that's a security scanner scanning some endpoint, and that's why you're like suddenly getting a bunch of 500 or 404s or whatever, the big error rate, and you look at the errors, and the errors are just your application sometimes often doing the correct thing, but error reporting and alerting isn't really doing the right thing. So it's a lot of the toil, obviously, that a lot of backends and infrastructure teams run into is like not just when things are broken, but when things are working correctly, not really knowing whether or not the alert or the notification you got is meaningful. Really, most of the time when something actually is broken, it does seem to hit the root cause pretty quickly, usually within a couple prompts.
Voxel is an OG AI company, and you're clearly you've found a very industrial application of this type of technology. You also care a lot about reliability, which is somewhat rare nowadays when we talk about we think about AI agents and how non-deterministic they are and how it's all about vibes. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious to get your take on how you've seen the AI impact your job over the last year and where you think this is heading.
That's a big question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you what's changed, at Voxel. I mean, we have, it's really to me, I see an interesting sort of divergence in the sort of like inbound streams of work. There are engineers that use these tools to do things they already know how to do, but just do them in vastly larger quantities or faster. And then there's not just engineers, there's also non-engineers that are doing this, but there's a mix of engineers, non-engineers, like designers and even product managers that are hoping to be able to use AI tools to help them do things they really don't know how to do at all. And the first group I see as having quite a bit of extensive success building really like powerful, complex new tools and new systems, and doing it just at a really like fast rate. And that's a I think it's hard to see that in any way other than positive as a benefit of the tools. It's hard to use them that way because the magic of of the agent tools makes you want to just believe that like, oh yeah, this first thing looks great, and so let's just use it. And so it's that those engineers that like don't trust the initial results and really push the agents to actually produce something good that are getting something highly valuable. I think the second group though, as much as there's some degree of challenge and difficulty in uh, I guess, validating the output that they get, and then finding a way to help them be productive, even though they're working on things that they're not really as familiar with. It's it's definitely it creates more workload. It creates a lot more task burden for engineers that actually do know. So like you get a product manager that wants to ship some code because now suddenly they can cloud the code up. So they put together a 2,000 line PR of some stuff that works on my machine, ship it over to an engineer, and so now there's like suddenly work for more work for an engineer, and it's difficult for them to even see that like that they've actually created more work for some people, even though it feels like they've done a lot of work in a short amount of time. And so yeah, I don't know where that's going. Maybe the tools will get so powerful that the output really will be just usable, like right out of the box. Personally, I sort of doubt that, but we'll see. I think we're going to hit the same stall point that self-driving vehicles have hit, where like we're perpetually 5 years away from full self-driving, and in any condition, and that's kind of felt like how it's been since 2015 almost. And so obviously we're getting further with self-driving vehicles, but like it's been a slog for all those companies to actually get to a point where they're putting vehicles on the road, and I know none of them are expanding as fast as they want to. I think we're going to see something similar with the sort of AI tech revolution, but where that point is, I don't really know. So yeah, I don't know. That's my thought.
And so how do you see Firetiger helping you in the future? Like what would you like to, you know, have come out of the product that maybe isn't readily available?
I think whether anybody likes it or not, more code that is written or is triggered to be generated by people that don't really understand the code is going to end up landing, than we would like. And that means that reliability is going to become more of a challenge over time as that starts to become more prevalent. And so I don't think it's going to be productive for everyone just to say, nope, you're never allowed to commit code if you like don't know how to, don't know how to reevaluate, etc. That's probably whether any of us likes that or not. It just doesn't seem likely that that's really going to be the way to be successful. So having tools that help you manage that risk seems pretty critical. And so, yeah, hopefully Firetiger is a tool that will help manage that risk where like there will be probably more unreliable code in the repo, whether we like it or not. And so if we can use a tool to help, recover some of that reliability, both reactively and proactively, that can maybe, limit the limit some of the negative impact while still retaining some of the positive impact of like, you know, having product manager says, "Oh, I want to fix a bug just because it's been bugging me," and then commit the code and hey, I'm gonna actually fix the bug, and that's pretty cool.